Hi guys, it's your boy Six. Now, I haven't posted anything in a while, and that's because I was actually opening a business and taking care of all the legal issues. And it took about 2 months, but I had a bunch of other things going on as well. Today, we're gonna make a web browser using JavaFx WebView and its web engine right after this. And this will actually be the first code tutorial in the channel Code 6. Hi guys, okay, so welcome to my project, and right now we're going to create a browser. So the place that I'm actually in right now is a new project. So what you want to do is, by the way, I'm using IntelliJ IDE as my IDE. So the first thing you'll see when you create a new project with any IntelliJ file, you'll have a main.java file, a controller.java file, and we'll have a sample FXML, and you can use the scene builder right here to actually visualize what you're building. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to edit the main file. So for the window width, we're going to have this at 800. And for our height, we're going to be 450. So that gives it about a 16:9 ratio. 450. Cool. So now we want to do something whereas this app will open as a full screen every time, and you have the option to resize this. So what we're going to do now is we're going to call this one Prime. And the thing I like about IntelliJ actually is that it has a lot of code completion, so it makes it easier. You still have to know what you're doing, but it helps a little bit. So set full screen, we're going to set that Boolean value to true. Yeah, typo. All right, Boolean value set to true. So when this launches any application, the application is going to come out as true. So now we want to go to our sample.fxml. We're going to actually build the layout for this application. So the first thing we want to do is come to Scene Builder. It's the easiest way you could possibly do this, and I promise it's not cheating. So we're going to get this grid pane that's already there. We're going to hit delete on that. So what we want to look for is we want to look for a border pane. And the reason we're looking for a border pane is that a border pane will actually allow you to anchor things to certain parts of the screen, and no matter how you resize the window, it'll stay there. Okay. So now we have our border pane. And the border pane is obviously going to be set up to the length and width of what we have. Just give me a second to check up on my reference model here just to make sure we're all on the same page. Alright, so we are actually good to go. So what we have to do now is set the layout of our border pane. So remember that what we did for the width and height of our main.java file is what we're going to do for the width and height of this one. So as I can remember, our width was 800 and our height was 450. Hit enter on that, and we have our window right here. So just to double check, 800 and 450, so we're good to go on that end. So what we want to do now is at the very top, we want to insert a toolbar. So we're going to look for our toolbar right here. We see our toolbar. We're actually going to drag it down to the tree. It makes it a lot better. There we are. So now this is a button, and we're going to call this button Go. Well, first we're actually going to name the text Go, and I'm going to tell you what to name it a little bit later. So you can just go ahead and highlight that, capital G-O. So we're good on that. Now, but since we have the button, we also want to lay it out and get it, the ID ready for our Java file so we can use this button. So we're going to come to the place where it says Go, and we're going to, actually I haven't named that button yet. So the name will come a little bit later, and I'm not sure if we even need to name this. So what we need to do now is insert a text field that will be under controls. So now inside the tree, we're just going to put our text field next to our button or just below that. Now the thing about scene builder is that it's always really sensitive in where you put your things. Actually, we'll just put it up here this way. And we're good on that. So we're just going to make this a little bit longer. And for this example, the text field will not get smaller or bigger when you enlarge the window to full screen. Just something that you guys should know. So now we're going to come to code for this text field. The FX ID is what is actually going to be referenced to in the main.java. It's how Java reads it, because Java cannot read XML, but it can read XML if you give it an FX ID. Hence why we're using Java Fx. So the FX ID for this one is just going to be called address bar, written in camel case. So that has its FX ID. So we're almost done designing the layout. Like I said, this is a very, very simple browser. So one thing we need is the backbone of all this, the web view. So we're going to click the web view, and we're actually going to drag it to the center part of the border pane, and that should fill up everything nicely. As you can see, the guide marks on the sides, we are good to go. So the layout of our web browser, whatever you want to call it, the layout of our web browser is complete. Now we're just going to see, what did I name the web view on the last one? The web view is actually called web. So just to confirm, we are on web view, looking up here, and our FX ID is just going to be a lowercase web. And that should be all we need for this file. Double checking the main file, cross checking that with my reference, everything looks good to go. And by the way, you don't have to call this hello world. You can call it anything you want. I'm going to call it King 6 browser. But you can basically call this anything you want. It's just the title of the window when everything pops up, such as up here, where it shows you like the name of my project and everything. It'll just say King 6 browser. So now we're going to go to our controller file. So what we want to do is controller file implements initializationable. Sorry, I suck at pronouncing, but let's go. We're actually going to do implements. Spelled that completely wrong. There we go. So now it's going to tell us that's wrong. Do not worry about that for now. We're just going to continue building. So I want you to make a string called ht-link, and that's hypertext link. I'll tell you why you need to name it that in a second. Well, you'll find out anyway. String hypertext link equals, obviously, your string, http://. Now, what that is basically when you type into a web browser, you say www. Or you just type in the name of where you want to go. You never actually put http:// because the browser does that for you. We're putting this string called ht-link, so it does that for the user. So now that's good. So now the button that we actually named, it has a name. It's called btn. We didn't give it an FX ID, but in FXML, the button has a name. So we have to go back to our sample.fxml file. Come to this button right here. We're going to look at the properties. Let me cross-check that with my reference on my left screen. Okay, sorry about that. In my reference file that I'm actually looking at simultaneously as I teach you guys how to build this, I actually had an unused button that was in there. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to reference our address bar. Remember, we named in the sample.fxml file, we named this as the address bar. So we're going to come in here, If anything is an FXML, you want to refer it to your Java file, you're going to hit at FXML, what it is, which is a text field, and we're going to just call the name. Give me 1 second. There is a reason why that didn't come up as purple when it should have. So now we're going to look at the text portion of our scene builder file, and we're going to look at what this code is referring to in terms of class. So which class is it looking at for a reference? Alright, so what we want to do is we want to implement an FX controller. So FX controller sample dot, and we're not using the main file for this one, we're actually using the controller. So now if we come back to our controller.java, this is now highlighted purple. Good. Basically, the controller of an FXML file is basically saying that whenever we look at references, whenever I say a reference, I want you to look at this FXML. And FXML is also saying whenever something is clicked, I want you to refer to this controller.java file. Okay, so that's good. So now the next thing we need to put is a string called address link. So now we're going to type in string address link. Alright, so after we put in the string address link, we want to leave that alone. That's going to be used later. Now we're going to refer to our web view at FXML. We're just going to type in web because that's what we called it, and it should recognize it, but it has not. So the problem with that is we didn't put web view. Now we're good. And one final thing we have to declare before anything is something called a web engine, which is how we're actually going to use this web view. So we're going to declare web engine. That should call my mistake for me. Web engine, we're just going to call it engine. Great. So now, after that, we want to make a method for that button that we have to go wherever you point it to. Basically, whichever address you type in, you want to have something that lets it go there. So now we're going to make a method called public void go action event. So now inside this, we're going to do address link equals AD. So basically, we want to say address link equals address bar dot get text to string. The reason we're saying dot get text to string is because we want to get the text from the text view and turn it into a string that we can use for this program. And then after that, we're going to do engine dot load, and it's going to load a string. So the thing that we want to load are the HT link, or in this case, we're going to call it the hypertext link, plus basically so this is going to set up the home page when we first do this. So we're going to just do www.google.com. So that's where it'll point until we change whatever we have to change in this address bar. Now, since we have google.com there, actually, hold on. Huge mistake. Instead of google.com, we want to do plus address link. My bad. All right, we're good. Now we need to make another method that overrides. So we're going to do at override. Under that, we're going to do a public void initialize, and we're going to pass in URL. I'll caps, sorry, lowercase URL, terrible mistake, and let's just hit Alt Enter to import that. URL java.net, let's go. URL, comma, resource bundle, named resource bundle, resource bundle, and that's all we need to pass in here. Let's just give it our encapsulating brackets. Now we're going to say engine equals web dot get engine. Seal that off with a comma, and we're going to say engine dot load, which is obviously our string, ht-link shift plus. Now we're going to do www.google.com. Now the reason we're saying www.google.com is because this is going to point to Google. That's basically what it's going to do. So there's actually no reason for us to not have a home page, because we're not going to be sure if the web view works. But in this case, since we pointed to Google right away, we're actually going to have an idea of why the web view should work, or how the web view should work in a way, as in like. All right, so sorry about that, guys, but one thing we have to do is in the initialize method, we're going to highlight everything here, hit copy, and what we want to do is actually get rid of this altogether. It's actually better if IntelliJ implements this method for you. So now we're going to say implement initializable. We're going to come to this little bulb, hit make methods. Now it's going to give us the initialize method, and our error code is going to go away. Now simply all we have to do is hit Control V and paste what we had before. Now we have a working browser, but there's only one thing. It doesn't look cool. We need to make this look cool. But before we make it look cool, let's actually implement an action to the button. So when we click that go button, which is here, what does it do? It actually takes us to the address that we chose. So we're going to come to the text portion of our scene builder, and we're going to look for our button, which is right here. Now we're going to type in on action, and you want to do hashtag plus the method that you set for it. So in our case, it's hashtag go. Perfect. Now our button is set up. So to style our files, we're going to want to go to our project, go to src, and click on the sample class, which is basically what we're using for this, and we want to make a new file. The file we're going to use is called main.css. Now for a lot of you newbies who don't know what CSS is, CSS is cascading style sheets. That actually allows you to style everything and makes it look cool. So now we have a CSS file. We're going to come back to our sample.fxml and hit style sheets equals main.css. It'll already know that you made the CSS file. Now the good thing about JavaFx scene builder is that you actually don't have to write anything in the CSS file. It'll just do that for you. So now we simply click on an element, hit style, FX background color, and that'll actually come up. Now I already have predetermined colors chosen for this, so I'm just going to go ahead and use the colors from my old project and just bring them in. Give me 1 second to actually find those. And now we're back. So FX background color for the toolbar. We're just going to paste that in there. And you can use any color you want. And I suggest going to the web address www.color-hex.com. You can find colors, literally millions of colors that you can use to style your applications. So now we have a greenish color in this toolbar. Now let's say we wanted a red color. How do we do that? Let's get a reddish color for this button, which I've also copied from my previous file. And we're going to look at the style. And after you add the CSS file, all this will come up as soon as you click style. You don't have to type anything in. So now we're just going to hit paste. and that's going to give us a reddish color. But we don't want this to be red because it's like a black writing and red background. So we're going to come all the way up to properties, hit the color, and turn it to white. Now we're all done. Now after you run this, everything should be good. Okay, so now as you can see, the King 6 browser is open. I've actually opened this project up prior to showing you this because I don't want you guys to go through the time it takes to actually build it. Now, this project did open up in full screen and you'll just easily hit escape to get out of it. But let's full screen this and see what happens. So we're in our browser right now. Our home page is Google because that's what we set it as. So now when you hit enter after typing an address, it will not work. You actually have to hit the go button. You can hit enter and put in a bunch of different functions like HTML5 video and things like that, but we're simply doing this to test out this simple browser function. So the first place we're going to go is www.youtube.com, and when we hit go, and it always takes a little bit long for the first website, but after that everything else is snappy. So YouTube will take X amount of time. It actually loaded pretty fast. So now our scroll wheel on our mouse works. You can come here to the scroll bar if you want to minimize the page. That'll work. Let's go to the channel. Let's actually look for the channel code 6. Let's hit enter. That'll work. And here we are, code 6. We're a very small channel, but that doesn't matter. We're going to get there soon. And thanks for watching code 6, guys. I hope you enjoyed this build. And yeah, so today you just learned how to make a web browser using JavaFx and FXML scene builder.